Good morning, Ruben.
Morning. Well, Senator, let me ask you, to tell us the details of this proposed bill. Is it because that's how they do it elsewhere, say in Europe, or because you just want to defend the interests of tenants? What are the details of that bill? And how does it also protect the interest of landlords?
Thank you, Ruben, and good morning to everybody. First of all, let me tell you my background in case you don't know, or some of you might not know. I spent over 35 years in England studying and working as a lawyer and traveling all over the world in the process. So I understand how things are done. So when I prefer solution to the problems of Nigeria, I talk from an informed position. Over the years, some things that I've learned, and I know that works elsewhere. For example, the issue about the payment of rent a year or 2 years in advance, or even payment of rent in dollars, that is almost like an abomination. But I'll come to that later. Because that's part of the problem that we have. I hope you give me the opportunity to dwell on. The issue rising from the rent payment is that it is manifestly unjust for anybody to demand for people to look for rent deposits or payments of 1 year or 2 years. Nigerians don't earn much. The salary scale of Nigerians is abysmal. It's not comparative with so many other societies. So where do you expect them to get rent, money to pay for 2 years? I mean, why do you have to put Nigerians through that hell? It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Again, as I said, in UK, America, it's just 1 month in advance. 1 month, only 1 month. And so anybody can look for any accommodation and be able to afford it. So it is as simple as that. If you insist that people should pay rent the way we are carrying on now, what it means that people have to lie to get that money. People have to steal to get that money. People have to do all manner of bad things to get that money. We've turned Nigerians into beggars. I know that as a matter of fact because I've had every day of the week, every month, there are a deluge of people making demands, and more than half of those demands are to do with rent. So I know. And the idea is to establish an agency. This agency will regulate and enforce any laws that will make about payment of rent. Not just the payment of rent, but also to do with the administration of those lease agreements or rental agreements. The fact is that for this to work, all properties in Nigeria must be registered, whether developed or not developed. You see, that's another issue entirely because in Nigeria, we have no database of things. We have no statistics. So it's difficult for anybody to plan. But this is required. This idea of having every land in Nigeria to be registered, whether developed or not developed, is also to help the landlords. Because if we have lands that are registered and you have an agency that is managing the history of everybody in terms of rentals, whether you're a poor person or a rich person makes no difference because there are houses for everybody that are on rent, short-term, long-term rentals. So what it means in essence is that for the landlords at least, they will know where they are with the tenants. And for the tenants, also, it will be a relief that they have this limited obligation on a monthly basis. Everybody can look for money and pay on a monthly basis. But beyond that, I must say this, that the agency will also mandate or rather the law will mandate every landlord and every tenant to, within 2 weeks of signing the agreement, to register it with the agency. So you register your tenancy agreement with the agency. The same obligation that the landlord has is what the tenant has. And the failure to do this has some penalties as well. So we just need to start managing our society better. As it is now, everybody is just on their own. The landlords do whatever they like. The tenants are out there. And of course, this has multiplying effects if it is done properly, because most of the banks, lenders, at the moment don't lend. They don't lend because they don't know the history of the landlord, of the tenants who might want to take a loan to pay rent. The tenants are everywhere, but the bottom line is that there must be a record that is consistent, that is acceptable, that is verifiable across the country. When this is done, everything will fall into place. Okay. The landlords will be able to, receive the money from the tenants into an account where the taxman will also be able to determine how much tax is payable. Currently, landlords don't pay taxes arising from occupation of the houses. Okay. Okay. So governments are losing money. State governments, federal governments, they're all losing money because there are no records. So we need to have a credible system that will work for everybody. I just feel that this is a very, very important process because it protects the landlords, it protects the tenants, it protects the banks,
Senator, can you hear me?
The governments as well, because governments have...
Can you hear me, Senator?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. I mean, fabulous idea.
Yes,
love it.
yes.
Love it, love it, love it. Very good. I mean, more than long overdue, I should say, for an idea like this, and I like it. But a couple of things I would like to put forward as other arguments I've heard landlords make. They say the reason why they collect this rent in advance is the fact that when you factor in the land and the cost of build for them and the attendant level of inflation, it takes about 10 years for you to get to a marginal level of return on your real estate. And because of inflation, they charge a year at least to be able to hedge inflation, to have the money at hand. And when you look at the inflation as it is today, the rate of things in January is not the rate of things today. So that's some argument they make, and that's one side of it. What would you like to see as regards that argument and the narrow way out? But secondly, should also, this your idea, should it also coincide, and probably is this something you want to take up, it should also coincide with taking up a bill as regards changing the Land Use Act. Because that's where the problem is. No property rights in this country. The landlords can be malleable with their land as much as they want to. Everything is still vested in the hands of the state. Is that something you can, put up for consideration and think through? Let's just think through it and have a debate this morning on that. Those two ideas.
Well, look, the Land Use Act is another. And I feel that we should look at it and review it. We will do so, particularly now that the Constitution Drafting Committee has been put in place and I am in that committee. So these are some of the things that we have discussed that might be at the front burner for us. But coming to the issue of how landlords can recover their investments in property development, that shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue at all. Landlords have their investments, and let me just be sarcastic a bit here. A lot of landlords in Nigeria, how did they make their money? Where did they get their money to build those houses? Ask yourself that question. Have you ever thought about that? You know, majority of the houses in Abuja belong to people who are in government, directors, pump sets, and all the rest of them. So, you know, they should be grateful that they had the opportunity to do what they've done, building those houses, and governments are not after them. And so, talking about recovering an investment is not an issue for me. I am concerned about the consumers. My major thrust in all this is about the majority of Nigerians. You know, the average ratio is about 50 tenants to one landlord. You know, so let's focus on the interest of the tenants. They are the ones who are put through hell to look for money, to pay money in advance, money that they don't have. As I said before, they go borrowing, they go lying about
their landlords too go borrowing to build. But sir, with due respect, I know you were trying to be sarcastic. It's not every landlord. Yes, it's not every landlord that depends on government money or state government to build houses. There are landlords too that they have debt currently.
There are very few.
There are real estate companies and there are landlords that have debt in the bank too. I mean, it's just to balance the conversation. There are those that have debt in the bank that they cannot recoup.
I know that. Yeah. I know that when it's an investment, they've chosen to invest in that sector. It's just like there are those who invest in transport sector or invest in agri sector. So they have done those investments, but that does not mean that the larger population should also bear the brunt of what is happening. Of course, the economy is an issue. Yes, I agree with you. The economy is an issue, and so those landlords that have earned their money legitimately, of course, they deserve to recoup from the rentals, which is why they went into the investment in the first place. But all I'm saying that over time, profits will normally come. It doesn't come in sort of a short while. So we should allow this bill to scale through, and you'll see a lot of difference. Because at that point, every person who wants to rent a place will have an option. You know, just imagine the difference between raising 100,000 naira to pay monthly or raising 2 million naira to pay for a year's rent. So it is a lot of difference, and we must think about our people, the consumers. Currently, the way things are, nobody cares about ordinary Nigerians, and that is why many people are homeless. Many people are homeless. Many people who are in their 30s are still squatting, living with their parents. Many people who are abused violently are unable to seek for an alternative accommodation. And of course, the government is not able to provide low-cost housing as you expect in other civilized societies for the people. So there are many issues, and these issues will be resolved, at least partly resolved.
Senator, you can hear me. Talking about those issues. First, you are not alone in defending the interest of, poor people who need to have a right to shelter. Former Minister of Works, former Governor of Lagos, Mr. Babajide Raji Fashola, SAN, is also of the view that rent should be collected, monthly. And that in any case, there are many houses that are unoccupied because people can't pay rent. The Lagos state government is also working along that line. But there are issues that I want to draw your attention to. First, the right to own property is a constitutional right. Section 43 says you can own in Nigeria either movable or immovable property. Now, 2, tenancy is a contractual agreement between landlord and tenants. So how do you legislate, relationship in a contract between two parties? That's one question. The other question is, okay, this proposed bill, existing law doesn't show that law of tenancy is under exclusive legislative list. That's why some states like Lagos have their tenancy laws. So we've talked about an agency Now, how would that agency function? Is it going to oversee houses in all parts of Nigeria? Because that's one question. It's one thing to have the law. It's another thing to be able to implement it. And then, of course, that implementation is very important. How do you implement it? Because you can't have a federal agency that is running a registry for all houses, every property in the whole of Nigeria.
As you said before, from the beginning, that all properties are invested in the government, isn't it? So whether it's local government, state government, federal government, let's not be, bogged down with legal arguments as to whose right is it and whose entitlement it is to make those laws. Just like, take for example, the Debt Management Office. Debt Management Office is here in Abuja. It's a federal government agency, but also after the creation of Debt Management Office here in Abuja, they have encouraged every state to create their own Debt Management Office, and they work hand in hand. There is no problem about this because land is land in Delta or in Lagos or in Maiduguri. What we just need to do is to regulate the way things are done. And once a federal government agency, takes the lead, other agencies that will be put together at the state levels will follow suit. They will all work hand in hand to make this possible for the interest of the people. And of course, your other question about whether you were asking about how the law will be implemented. Law can be implemented. Yes, it is very simple. And also, how does the government come into private contracts? Look, government is government. Government regulates everything. Just because we live in a quasi-liberal society doesn't obviate the fact that everything should be regulated. Everything should be regulated to the extent that it protects the interests of the people and for the people. I mean, every government is there because of the people. So if you don't regulate any sector, you are creating problems for the people. Whether it's the tenancy, land and tenancy sector, whether it's the aviation sector, there are regulations, and those regulations are needed to make things easier for everybody. If you don't regulate this sector, what you're asking is some kind of anarchy. So a landlord can wake up and go to the tenant and remove the roof and say, you've not paid the rent, you must go. Or the tenant will say, okay, I will go, but I'll burn down the building. So there has to be some regulation that is for the interest of both parties. I mean, when I say about both parties, the landlords and the tenants.
Okay, Senator, let me just ask a follow-up question. And it's as follows. One, many of these landlords may be faced with a situation whereby you will have a tenant. Government has not paid his salary. This is the month of March. Many people have not received salary for February. Some have not even been paid for January in the month of March. So you have your property, you put tenants there, you expect them to pay at the end of the month. They come to you and they tell you that government has not paid them. What should the landlord do under such circumstances? If the landlord takes them to court under existing tenancy laws, it will take maybe about 10 or 12 months for the landlord to be able to evict that tenant. So the man will have his property because there is a law that says only collect at the end of the month. The same government that is regulating has not paid salaries. If government wants monthly rent, should we not be looking at government doing low-cost housing? Government can build houses for the poor, give them apartments there, and collect their rent on a monthly basis. How about that, Senator?
Mm-hmm. Ruben, you talk like a landlord. You talk as if you're an advocate for land and property owners. And this is crazy. You know, somebody like you should be at the forefront of advocating for the masses, you know, not for elites like yourself. You know, this is the problem, Ruben. I can tell you this immediately. The landlords are more comfortable. The average landlord has one or two properties. But this is why this agency that I'm proposing is so important, because part of the requirement is that there will be a court. There will be a court established to deal with tenancy matters judiciously and expeditiously. You know, so the issue of a matter being in court for 12 months or 2 years or 5 wouldn't arise, because those courts are there to dispense justice as quickly as possible. It is actually part of the proposal, because I had foreseen the difficulties in prolonged litigations. So what we need to do, let me repeat again, is for government to regulate this sector. This sector is not regulated at the moment. That's why you see some highbrow property owners asking for rent in dollars, for example. That is surely illegal. That should not be condoned nor encouraged. And this also, of course, I wish we could talk about the economy more, because property is a huge part of the economy. On average, I think the income from properties and the tax therefrom from the rentals should be no less than 10% of the GDP of any nation. But in Nigeria, this is hardly the case, because most landlords don't declare their tenancy income from tenancy arrangement, because there are no regulations really to this effect.
Okay.
So there are many benefits in trying to put this together.
Okay. So Prof, Senator, Lagos is way ahead. There's something called the land use charge, so like a tax on your land and your real estate in Lagos. That one applies. So there's some tax regime and all of that. But Dr. Bat is not talking as and I'm speaking for him now, because I know he's not talking because he doesn't love the masses. But we are looking for practicality.
You should speak for yourself, my friend.
No, we're looking for practicality of solutions. And that's why I was asking the questions too about hedging against inflation by the landlords. I mean, I want everything well for the poor man in the country. But we must also look at practicality of those that invested their hard-earned money. And if you talk to some landlords, those that took bank loans, that are dying of high blood pressure now as we speak, and they are landlords too, and those are those I'm speaking for to be able to balance this conversation. Can we also suggest an unexplained wealth act that says that most politicians that build homes they can account for, the home should be taken from them and given as mass housing for poor people? Is that not another solution? Because we have a lot of unexplained wealth and unexplained real estate. Just like Britain proposed in 2017, you know, taking house from unexplained wealth, foreign money, Russian money and all of that, and use it for mass housing for poor people, so that at least most of the homes in Ikoyi that are empty will be filled up by poor people.
Well, I agree with you entirely, you know, with what you've said, but it's all about ideas. Let me just tell you something that I strongly feel about. Over the years, you've seen how properties are bought and sold abroad. Properties are generally bought and sold through mortgages. So there are records of every deal, records of every transactions, records of who is who, everybody. We don't have that in Nigeria. So the first thing we must do, as I said before, is to have a register of all properties, whether developed or not developed. Yes, I see what you're talking about taking properties from people who have stolen money and all that. That again is something that should be done. I rule out nothing. You know, I will encourage any such thing. However, I think the best approach at improving on our economy is to make it possible for people to have mortgages to buy properties at a very achievable rate, acceptable rate. So, for example, in most countries, the interest rate is about 3%, 4%. So people can borrow and pay their mortgages as and when due. And if we are able to do this, this means organizing or reorganizing the banks and getting the CBN to make sure that we have a rate that is acceptable to or payable to everybody. It has said not more than 3%. When this is done, what happens next is that there will be more property owners. Even those who that you classify as being poor will be able to walk into a bank and be able to buy their own properties. So in other words, we should be gearing towards everybody becoming a property owner and getting them away from renting. If this is achieved, you will see that more people will be happier. More people will become property owners. More people will even be able to, borrow more or use those properties as collaterals to borrow. So yes, you're right about the possibility of unexplained wealth act. Well, I think something we should pursue. But I am even more concerned now about how we can make more people to become property owners. And this can happen if we have low interest rates. It is very wrong for CBN, for example, to put an interest at 25 or 26 last week. You can't control inflation in Nigeria by imposing too much interest rate. Who are you trying to help? That is the wrong solution. People use interest rate generally to contain expenditure, but people are not spending because they don't have the money. So the normal economics theories do not apply in Nigeria here, and that is actually a very, very bad thing to do. It's as if that pronouncement was just done for the benefit of a few elites, but not for the masses. You don't increase your interest rates to improve on your economy. You don't do that, not in a Nigerian liberal economy as we have it.
Well,
sorry, I've gone into some other issues.
Senator, well, the debate has already started. I think this is a very interesting subject, and there will be many Nigerians too who would like to contribute to the conversation. But we'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Well, with all fingers pointing in direction of a statement made by Mr. President of his inauguration speech, and that's the statement that where he said fuel subsidy is gone, which of course started, which has remained at the root of the problems that Nigerians are facing today. Well, they have tried as much as possible to hide under the fact that it's not just in Nigeria alone, which is making matters worse. It went on at some point to say they were cutting down governance, and then they traveled to Dubai, where nations like Germany did not come go for such events because they couldn't afford it. Germany could not afford it. Nigeria went with 1,400 and thereabout, and so you know what we're talking about. And so the same government came up with buying SUVs of over about 160 million for all members of the House of Assembly and House of Representatives and the Senate and everybody. And but then as if that was not enough, I think the president, in his nanimosity, in his magnanimity, he's trying also, to see how he can make things work, in the midst of it all. Went to Qatar recently after the fact that he asked to go to Qatar, to go into Qatar, and then they denied him. They said he can't come in, there was no need and all of that. And but then of course when there was uproar, people were saying that Qatar rejected Nigeria president. I think they eventually allowed him to come. And of course you saw that trip, even though Mr. President says that he is cutting down on expenses, governance expenses, I saw two of his children on that trip. I don't know when the movement to Qatar now became a family trip, if it was actually a national issue. It's one of the biggest problem we have in the polity of Nigeria, is that we mix up things, and that's why we've not gotten things right. We mix things up. We mix up governance with family issues and all of that. The same way Tinubu was sitting in Federal Executive Council meeting. What an insult! Tinubu sitting in Federal Executive Council, but thank God for Mr. President, who actually rebuked him instantly and sent him out, which because it's a national issue. But then somehow he's still doing quite a number of things that are still not right, and which we believe that in due course those things will be corrected. But then the core of this particular video is where he now told them when he was rounding up his meeting with them in Qatar, told them that they should not offer bribe to anybody. That if anybody asks for bribe, they should report to him directly. And that's talking about people those who are coming to invest in Nigeria. Well, the first question that comes to my mind, okay, is it with the way we are now that somebody will come and invest his money in Nigeria? Then secondly, another question that comes to mind again is that, does it now mean that you agree that you have corrupt people in the system? But then, well, you might say that, oh, you can't but have people like that amongst, there will always be a Judas. You understand? Or there will always be so many Judases among so many Peters and so many Johns and all of that. And so there will always be Peters. But I think it's passed more of a wrong message than the good one. You understand? Because not many people we see, when you wear a white dress and there is a black spot on it, the black spot, that tiny black spot becomes very obvious than even the whole of the white that you're wearing. And that's the fact. And so when you think that, when you go out and you say something like that, you have passed the message about the system that, look, you are coming into a corrupt system. I'm inviting you to come into a corrupt system. But when you see corruption, please tell me, which is wrong. Which is wrong. Yes, it's wrong. Well, I would not say that people, those who are handling the president's speech, should check certain things, but then because most of these things that had caused major issues were things that were off scripts. It wasn't a script that Mr. President was reading when he said to them that if anybody asked for bribe, which was not wrong, but then take for instance, it wasn't everything that was said on that trip that we heard about. And that's the truth. It wasn't everything that was said on that trip that we heard about. So I think certain things are not supposed to be said in certain places and certain quarters. Take for instance, the issue of subsidy is gone. It's a major problem for us in Nigeria today. The big question is, between you and me, are we still not paying subsidy? Are we still not paying subsidy? Well, I think the president should do well to speak less, talk less, and act more. I think that's better. Speak less and act more. And so instead of telling Qatar people that if anybody asks for bribe, you should tell me or report that person to me, I think it's better that you are dealing with the corruption at home. That's like washing your your dirty linen outside. That's it. That's what Mr. President just did. That's what, anyway, but please feel free to drop your comment, make them simple and civil. Let us know what your opinions are on this particular one that Mr. President did in Qatar. Thank you very much for watching. This is still Serious Matters here at Tony TV. Don't forget to share our videos with others. Drop your comment, make them simple and civil. Thank you.